7 goals, 5 matches. Brazil eliminated. Norway's first World Cup quarterfinal in history. The Viking row, the Snapchat selfies, the handbags, the press conferences, the most entertaining personality at the entire 2026 World Cup. And then, sitting on the bench, eyes closed, head down. While England celebrated on the pitch in front of him, Erling Haaland's World Cup is over, and the way it ended is the most shocking, most painful, most controversial finish to a tournament story that this competition has produced in years. Welcome back to Robert's Football Talk. I am your host, and if you are new here, subscribe right now and hit that bell, because today we are breaking down everything that happened in Miami last night. The Bellingham brace that ended the dream, the goal that was disallowed because of Haaland himself, the moment his own father went on social media and called out the referee, and the image that will define this World Cup for every Norwegian who ever believed: Haaland, bench, eyes closed. This is the full story. Let us go. Subscribe to Robert's Football Talk right now before we start, because this breakdown goes places that no other channel is going today. Part 1. How we got here. The most remarkable debut World Cup in history. Before we talk about how it ended, let us talk about what Haaland built over the previous 5 matches, because the context makes the ending even more painful. Today, index equals 19-1. 4 weeks ago, if you told Norwegians their team would be in the World Cup quarterfinals, they might have laughed it off. Norway had not been at a World Cup since 1998. 28 years, a nation of 5 million people. A team whose most famous player had said publicly that Norway's chances of winning the World Cup were 0.5%. That player was Erling Haaland himself. And then the tournament started, and Haaland scored against Senegal, and against Iraq, and against Ivory Coast, and twice against Brazil. 7 goals in 4 matches. Seat, index equals 16-1. He'd scored in 14 straight competitive games for Norway, including 7 goals in 4 World Cup games. The Viking row celebration became one of the most iconic images of this entire tournament. Sight index equals 16-1. Haaland gleefully banged the drum to orchestrate one of the best celebrations this tournament had seen. His Snapchat selfies went viral. His press conference personality made him the most entertaining player off the pitch. His goals made him the most dangerous player on it. Sight index equals 17-1, a lethal presence in the box, and a goofy no-nonsense personality off the pitch. Haaland has become somewhat of an all-round entertainer for viewers. His exemplary goal-scoring figures make you almost forget he is playing in his debut World Cup. And then came England, and everything changed. Subscribe to Robert's Football Talk right now. We are just getting started, and this story gets much darker before it gets better. Part 2. The match that ended the dream. Miami Stadium. World Cup quarterfinal. Norway versus England. The match that the entire football world had circled as the one where Haaland versus Kane would define who went to the semifinals. Today, we're going to take a close look at the insanely cool, living nanotechnology that makes this work. And then Norway took the lead. Kane had his pocket picked inside the England half, and Shelderup's cross shot from the left-hand side flew in off the post. Norway 1-0. The Viking row started again. Miami was shaking, but England responded. Sight index equals 15-1. Anthony Gordon's pass inside was gathered by Bellingham, who shifted the ball onto his left foot and placed it into the bottom corner. 1-1 at halftime, and the stage was set for Bellingham to do something extraordinary in the second half. And then came the moment that should have been Norway's, the moment that still has half the football world arguing. Iskit index equals 15-1. Norway thought they had restored their advantage when former West Brom defender Torbjorn Hegem converted the rebound when Sorloth's shot was kept out by Pickford. But replays revealed a push from Haaland on Anderson before the corner was taken, with the goal disallowed and the set piece retaken as a result. Haaland pushed Anderson, his own goal disallowed because of his own foul. The man who had been Norway's hero all tournament became the reason their most important goal of the competition did not stand. And then Bellingham won it. Sight index equals 18-1. Bellingham pounced on Nyland's error to prod home the rebound from Rodgers' long-range shot just 3 minutes into the extra time period. England 2, Norway 1. And somewhere in the final minutes of extra time, Stale Solbakken made the decision that shocked everyone. He substituted Erling Haaland. Now, I want to ask you something before we go further. When you saw Haaland being substituted in a World Cup quarterfinal with Norway still in the match, what did you feel? Shock? Understanding? Drop your honest reaction in the comments right now, because that moment divided football fans everywhere. Subscribe to Robert's Football Talk right now. Every week we bring you these deep dives, and we are not done yet. Part 3. The bench. Eyes closed. The image that broke Norway's heart. Site index equals 16-1. The last thing anyone expected was Haaland, the breakout icon of this World Cup, finishing his tournament, slinking on the bench, eyes closed, perhaps from frustration or embarrassment, or both, with his team down by just a single goal. Yet that is exactly what happened. Eyes closed, on the bench, in a World Cup quarterfinal, with Norway 1 goal down, with 3 minutes of extra time remaining, the most dangerous striker at the entire tournament, sitting in his tracksuit, watching his teammates try to save a dream he had carried on his back for 5 weeks. Why did Solbakken substitute him? Site index equals 16-1. Haaland admitted he was out of gas. 7 goals in 5 matches. A body that had given everything. A 25-year-old who had carried Norway further than they had ever been in 28 years. And he had nothing left. That is not weakness. That is the truth of elite sport. Bodies run out. Even Haaland's. But the image, the bench, the closed eyes, that is what every Norwegian fan will carry from this World Cup. Not the 7 goals, not the Brazil match, not the Viking row, the bench in Miami with his eyes closed and 1 goal between Norway and the semi-finals of a World Cup. Part 4. His father's tweet. The controversy that exploded online. And then came the moment that took this story from painful to explosive. Alfie Haaland, Erling's father, and a former soccer player, wrote on X, "Well done, Bellingham and referee." 4 words from Erling Haaland's father on social media during the match, directed at Jude Bellingham and the referee. Alfie Haaland and Jude Bellingham have history. They have Manchester City and Borussia Dortmund history. They have shared dressing room history. And now Alfie is on X saying, "Well done, Bellingham," and referee as his son sits on the bench watching Norway's World Cup dream die. Site. Index equals 16-1. Critics accused Anderson of flopping on the push incident that led to Haaland's goal being disallowed. Was Haaland's contact enough to warrant a disallowed goal? In real time, it looked soft. The replays showed clear contact. VAR confirmed the decision. But the timing of it in a World Cup quarterfinal with Norway leading 2-1 and on the verge of a semifinal makes it one of the most debated calls of the tournament. Alfie Haaland did not say the game was rigged. He did not make a formal complaint. He posted 4 words on social media, but those 4 words exploded the internet because they came from the father of the man at the center of the most controversial moment of the match. Bellingham and Haaland are friends. They played together at Dortmund. They hugged after the final whistle. But between the friendship and the football, a disallowed goal, and a father's tweet, and a bench with eyes closed, this story has layers that go beyond what happened on the pitch. Subscribe to Robert's Football Talk right now. Share this video, because the next part is the one that makes everything else make sense. Part 5. What Haaland said after. The grace of a great player. Side index equals 16-1. As for Haaland, he was not too bummed about his benching. He admitted he was out of gas. He has repeatedly said that Norway's appearance in a World Cup for the first time in 28 years was itself a victory. Beating Brazil was surreal. Falling to England carries no shame. And then he said the words that made every Norwegian cry and every football fan respect him even more than they already did. Shite index equals 16-1. How is it to be Erling Haaland right now after being in the quarterfinals with Norway and going straight to holiday? It is quite nice. I think this changes Norway. I think it changes me. I have said it many times, we are building on something in Norway. We are building on something in Norway. That sentence, from a 25-year-old who just finished his debut World Cup with 7 goals and a quarterfinal elimination. Not bitterness, not blame, not a formal complaint to FIFA. Building on something. Norway had not been at a World Cup in 28 years. They came back. They beat Brazil. They reached the quarterfinals. And Haaland, who had given everything his body had to give, sat on the bench with his eyes closed because there was literally nothing left, and then stood up when it was over and said, "We are building on something." Lashgate, Index Teen 17-1. Maybe this will never come back to Norway because I think we will qualify more. Every time now we have a possibility to go through to a European Championship or a World Cup, said Coach Solbakken. Cite Norway 28 years without a World Cup. Then Haaland arrived, and they qualified, and they beat Brazil, and they reached the quarterfinals. That is what one player can do to an entire nation's relationship with a sport. Part 6. The numbers that will never be forgotten. Let me give you Haaland's World Cup numbers one final time, because they deserve to be said clearly and completely. Cite Index equals 16-1. 7 goals in 4 World Cup games. 7. In 4 matches. In his debut tournament. Cite Index equals 15-1. Erling Haaland has netted 4 match-winning goals with only Poland's Grzegorz Lado in 1974 and Italy's Salvatore Schillaci in 1990, managing more in a single campaign in the competition's history. 4 match-winning goals in a single World Cup campaign. Only 2 players in history have ever done more, ever, in the entire history of this tournament. Cite Index 17-1. Harry Kane labeled Erling Haaland a machine. His goal-scoring record physically, he is a machine. He is a beast. His finishing is at the highest level, and his goal-scoring record speaks for itself. Kane, his direct opponent, his Golden Boot rival, called him a machine and a beast before they even played each other. That is the level of respect Haaland commands from the best players in the world. And in his final match, he had a header saved by Pickford. He had another effort parried. He was involved in the disallowed goal controversy, and he ran out of gas. 7 goals, 1 disallowed goal that ended Norway's best moment, 1 substitution in extra time, eyes closed on the bench, and then grace in the press conference that made you respect him more than the 7 goals ever could. Subscribe to Robert's Football Talk right now. Hit the bell. Share this video with every football fan you know, because this story deserves to be told properly. Part 7. What comes next? For Haaland and for Norway. Haaland is 25 years old. This was his debut World Cup. The next one is in 2030. He will be 29. In the absolute prime years of a striker's career, with the experience of this tournament behind him, with the knowledge of what it takes to score 7 goals at a World Cup, with Norway now having qualified once and knowing they can do it again, the 2030 World Cup is Haaland's tournament to win. Not to participate in, to win. If Norway qualify and Haaland stays healthy, and the system that produced 7 goals in 5 matches at 2026 is refined and improved over 4 more years, the conversation about Haaland at a World Cup in 2030 will make 2026 look like a warm-up. And here is the number that should frighten every defender alive. Haaland is on pace to break every goal-scoring record that has ever existed in football. 2 Skyte Index equals 20-1. He is on pace to shatter the all-time scoring record. His club record already surpasses almost every historical comparison. If his international numbers in 2030 even approach what he produced in 2026, the Golden Boot, the tournament scoring record, the conversation about the greatest goal scorer in World Cup history, all of it becomes a Haaland conversation. He said, "We are building on something in Norway." That is not a consolation. That is a promise. From the most dangerous striker on the planet, to every defender who will face him in 4 years' time. Part 8. The goodbye that was not really a goodbye. After the final whistle, Haaland waved to the Norwegian fans in Miami. Cite Index 116-1. Norway's Erling Haaland waves to fans following the FIFA World Cup quarterfinal between Norway and England. He waved. Not a head-down walk, not a frustrated trudge. He turned to the fans who had traveled across the world to watch him. Who had done the Viking row in Miami, Florida of all places? Who had believed when nobody else did? Who had watched him bang the drum and take the selfies and smile through press conferences and score 7 goals that nobody thought were coming? And he waved with a smile because he understood exactly what had been built. Not a World Cup trophy, not a semifinal, not even a goal in the quarterfinal, but something more important than any of those things. The belief that Norway belongs. That the 28-year wait was an aberration, not a destiny. That a nation of 5 million people with one extraordinary player can walk into a World Cup and eliminate Brazil and reach the quarterfinals and scare England and leave Miami with their heads held higher than any Norwegian football team in a generation. That is Erling Haaland's World Cup legacy. not 7 goals. The belief he installed in an entire country. The journey is over for 2026. The story is nowhere near finished. That is the full breakdown. 7 goals. Eyes closed on the bench. His father's tweet. Bellingham's brace. The disallowed goal. And the grace of a great player telling the world they are building on something. I want 3 things from you in the comments right now. First, is Haaland's 2026 World Cup the greatest debut tournament performance in the history of the competition? Second, was Solbakken right to substitute him with Norway 1 goal down in extra time? Third, does Haaland win the World Cup in 2030? Drop everything below. I read every single one. This has been Robert's Football Talk. Hit that like button, share this with every football fan who watched Haaland this tournament because this video does his story justice. Subscribe if you are not already here. New videos every single week, and this World Cup still has 4 matches left. I will see you in the next one.